Hey there, it's Brandon of the Rheology Podcast. On today's episode of So They Say, the guys will be discussing the increasingly prevalent worldview that Christians are judgy. Why does it seem like Christians gravitate towards an us versus them mentality and a belief that their role is to judge issues and even people? This is episode 12. Welcome.
Hello, friends. How are we all doing today?
Chris, my drive into the studio today was a little.
Always with the driver.
I'm considering taking the train in from now on. I don't know if I can deal with the traffic anymore.
Smart. That's smart money.
It's still
Taking the
beautiful
train.
though here in sunny Burbank,
Reducing
California.
your carbon footprint as well.
Well, I don't really
Out
care
here in
so much about
California.
that. Oh, yeah, probably shouldn't say that out loud.
Only because we're in California.
Yeah.
Yeah, only that. If we were in Texas, we would burn the
Yeah.
midnight
Careful.
oil, baby.
Burn everything.
Careful.
We would burn that oil. How's it going in here?
Yep.
Tyler's had his semi-full glass of cranberry juice.
Gets the mind going.
He's ready to roll.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, though, already here before we started recording, I asked Tyler how he was doing with his reading with an author by the name of David Teams. Not saying he's like the greatest author in the world, but he wrote a book about William Tyndale, and we've talked about William Tyndale quite a bit on this podcast because he's kind of integral in the whole story here. And he said he returned the book because he was bored.
And then he burnt it.
So
Well, I
I
can't remember
suggested,
something.
Just like
Burnt it.
Tyndale at the stake.
I
that's-
suggested then maybe, I don't know, hop on pop. He's already read Green Eggs and Ham, so I couldn't go there.
Yeah.
Go Dog Go's a good one too,
Thanks.
Tyler.
Thanks, Scott, for
It's
the
a real good
recommendations. I appreciate that.
I think you'll
It
find that
was-
a major page turner.
It was so bad, so dry, and I didn't want to feel like I'm in college again.
Okay, that's
So-
probably good.
Which it's more a testament to how intellectual you are because you enjoy that kind of stuff. So it's a compliment.
Nice
Take the
try to
compliment.
save it
Not-
there,
not-
but
take the compliment. Don't try to like trash me.
I'll take the compliment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gee,
I'm just trying to
please.
expand your
You
mind a little
complimenting
bit.
him by returning the book
Yes.
that he loves so much.
All right,
Yeah.
there it is.
If you think I'm smart,
Yeah.
just wait till you hear what Scott reads.
Wow. Are you going to put that on a t-shirt?
Am I gonna do
Why don't you
that?
tattoo that on your heart? How about that?
Ooh.
All right.
There's a segue. There's a segue about
This
judging
is
here coming.
Yeah, that's it.
Where's the
Perfect segue.
Spicy
here.
Monday morning
Tee it
at
up.
the office.
So we touched on this question, this actual idea of why are Christians so daggum judgy?
Hold on.
Uh-huh.
I want to go back.
Uh-huh.
I just want to say this. David Teams, if you're listening, nothing against you. I just don't like your writing. Has he written anything else?
I don't know.
Is he a one-book author?
I didn't go looking for
tell.
David Teams' books. I went looking for a biography of William Tyndale, and
Okay.
everybody said that his was one of the best.
Well,
And it is. It's great.
subjective, I
I'm looking
guess.
for the
great.
Google review.
It's great history, which apparently Tyler doesn't really want to
It's
know
it
about.
is so
But
bad.
anyhow,
I wanted to know about it. That's why I
here's
rented
what
the
we'll
book.
do. Here's what we'll do. I'll read it and then I'll translate
Yeah.
it for you. How
Marco
about that?
Polo it.
Can you make a video?
Can I make a video? I
Yeah.
kind of have made a video on it a little bit.
Okay,
So I'll refresh your memory with that video
great.
after we're
I
done.
can't wait.
It's on YouTube, by the way, for those who's listening.
Plug.
Anyway, we talked about episode 9 that all of a sudden we've got quote unquote Christians where they feel like their mission on this planet is to go and, save the heathens,
Mhm.
save the infidels. And it's turned into like an us versus them kind of deal now. And, where there's like a battle going on almost there's a war waging.
Oh, yeah.
And we're on the side of right. And
Yes.
all those who don't know God or love God, they're on the side of wrong. And, I feel like I can't imagine that I don't have specific instances or, times that I've recorded where I've talked to people recently about this, but I can't imagine that this isn't one of those things where people go oh yeah, I mean, it's that whole idea of someone standing on the street corner and preaching.
Oh, we have a real life story. I
Okay.
think Tyler can talk about.
Oh, I don't know which one you're talking about.
It was when our
If
campus,
it was
UNC
in
Charlotte.
if it was in David Team's book, you're gonna have to tell it
Yeah.
yourself. Okay.
All right, I'll tell the story. Tyler. No. It was like last month of classes, and the campus of UNC Charlotte was flooded. I've never seen it like this before, but at least 100.
When was this?
Like last 3 weeks, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks
This
ago.
this year. Oh,
This
okay.
year, yeah.
Okay.
It just happened. It was a huge abortion, like
Demonstration.
demonstration.
Or whatever.
But
Mhm.
I've never seen. Usually they set up like one space on campus. There were
Mhm.
like hundreds of people all over campus from all entrances with their children. Like, and it was
Wow.
harassing students. And Tyler got into it with someone.
I didn't
Oh.
get into it.
Tell
He
me more.
couldn't. He just couldn't contain himself because it was
true, I
really
couldn't.
bad.
Okay.
All our students were like traumatized. There were students who were like, I'm not leaving my dorm today because of what's happening outside, because there's just like dead bodies everywhere.
Wow.
Pictures of dead bodies.
Oh, man.
Dead,
Yeah,
but also
yeah.
children. They're okay. We get into it.
Uh-huh.
But Tyler had a run in.
Yeah.
He's-
I'm
Okay.
sorry, I'm reliving it in my
Yeah,
head
yeah.
right now. I think just seeing all the pictures of dead fetuses on campus, and there were like 5 and 6 year olds handing out these
Yeah.
pamphlets to students, and I have a 5-year-old, and we have a lot of students that have experienced a lot of religious trauma
Mhm.
because they've been on the side of them in the wrong and not on the
Mhm.
side of right and us.
Yeah.
I just, something in me couldn't take it anymore. And we walked by this one older guy, and I turned around and I asked him, so this is success for you guys? And after that, I kind of go blank. I'm not sure exactly what happened.
But he didn't actually go blank because I heard the conversation.
I don't really remember what I said. Maybe Chris can.
They just started like
It's hard.
because they were both. You were walking away from them, so you weren't yelling,
I was not yelling, and
but you were making sure that they could hear your voice
yeah.
from like 10 feet away.
Mhm.
So it's not like yelling, but
my whole thing is like, okay, you want to change students' minds about abortion. I get it. Okay. But do you think this is the way to do that?
Right.
By getting kids to hand out pamphlets of these pictures on them, and at the same time saying, if you don't agree, then you're going to hell.
yeah.
Mhm.
Is that the way you're going to change
we had
people's
students
minds?
who were like, I don't want this. And then someone would say, well, you're probably going to hell anyways.
Yes.
That was
Okay.
literally the response.
So
Wow.
what are
Yeah.
like?
So, yeah.
So is success actually changing people's minds, or just saying that we did what we were supposed to do and they're going to do what they need to do, and that's that?
Mhm.
And that's so frustrating to me. So
Yeah.
getting
You-
all hot and bothered already.
No, I mean, so my wife and I have talked about this a lot. And same thing. It's like, do you really think this approach or strategy, you have a goal,
Mhm.
and then I'm going to write out a strategy on how to achieve the goal. And this is what you come up with. And I'm not trying to judge you from a Christian point of view. I'm just trying to judge you from a marketing point of
Yes,
view,
yes,
This is
really.
business.
It's like,
But
this is proven not to work.
Correct.
But in their mind, this is the warped part of it. In their mind, it's that whole, and I know you guys have heard this and know this. It's like that whole, but if we can just reach one, it's worth it.
Yeah,
and that's
sure.
how they rationalize it.
Yeah, save
But
one
it's,
soul.
but it's not
Save
even that.
one.
It's
Reach
like,
one.
but God's called me to do this, and that is success. Me showing up and being obedient to God is success
Yep.
in all this. So
Yes. It's like,
well,
it's like,
that's how
it's
they're
like they're defending the
yes,
faith.
Yes.
And defending the faith by going on the attack.
Yes.
And bit of an oxymoron at that point.
But to go back to our original why we're doing this,
Uh-huh.
right? It's because like that they have to do it. It is like they
Right.
have to create this
Right.
like enemy.
Yeah.
Because to do what you're doing, you have to enter a certain space in your head to be yelling at random people,
Sure.
right? And
Right.
then because you're inviting them to a space of love.
It doesn't make
Afterwards,
any-
Right.
afterwards,
yeah.
right? Like
Well, it's-
right.
we're going to guilt trip all these
Yeah,
students and they're going to love it.
Yeah. Shame him.
How? How did
Yeah.
that happen?
We're going to shame them into submission is what it is. And
Yeah, like a dog.
Yes. And that really doesn't work. It doesn't, things don't happen that way.
And then you're also using people really against their will. Like they had their kids out there.
Yeah, it's like borderline child slave labor.
And Chris and I were we were trying to leave campus, and we kept on seeing these people. And it eventually turned into a game of saying, oh yeah, that guy, he doesn't believe in any of this stuff. You could just tell from his expression. He wasn't trying to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Like he looked visibly like sad and upset.
Uncomfortable.
And I just wanted to go up to him and say, hey, you don't have to do this.
Mhm.
Like it's not worth it. You can come home with me if you need to.
Yeah.
Like, I'll take care of you. It
Right,
just,
right.
oh man.
So you guys used to have, I don't know if this is, used to be a dude at the UNCC tower that preached all the time.
There's no more tower.
The tower's there is the guy not there anymore?
A guy didn't show up this year. Wait. I don't remember.
When you guys were in school, there was a dude.
Yes, there was. Yeah. There's always a dude. Preacher Gary. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
You remember Preacher Gary?
I have not thought about him in so long.
He's probably no longer with us.
He might not be.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why they tore the tower down.
That's
in honor.
We can't have a tower here anymore.
Yeah.
There's no Gary.
There's no
We
Gary.
can't
There's no
have a tower. How can we have a tower without someone preaching turn and burn to all the students? This is dumb. Yeah, I mean, so like for us, because we lived up in the, you guys know this, but up in the university area of Charlotte for a few years, and there was always these dudes that showed up at the Chick-fil-A over there at Concord Mills Mall, across the street from Concord Mills Mall.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Inside or outside?
Outside. Yeah, outside. And he had one of those portable
No way. I didn't know
PAs or whatever.
Yeah.
I always was like going,
Just in the parking lot for people at Chick-fil-A?
No, dude. No, that makes way too much sense.
Okay. Wait, what are you talking about?
We're talking about stupid stuff that doesn't make any sense. He's literally out like between the restaurant and the road. So
his audience was people in cars?
yeah. So for you that are listening, I mean, this is a very, very,
I can't even eye roll.
This is a very, very busy road and lots of traffic. And you got a dude over on the side in the grass with a battery powered PA.
Sure.
Okay, I guess that would be the
only. It's not solar
I don't know
powered,
if he
probably.
went into Chick-fil-A and said, "Hey, we're going to plug this in." Right over there.
Get one of your outlets real quick.
So he's out there with a microphone and
Chick-fil-A
a PA, and he's preaching away.
That's crazy.
And I remember, and this is not going to be a shock, but I remember like one time, like we were going to Chick-fil-A, and there he was, and I'm like, okay. I was like, we're going to get out, and I'm going to go, and I want to go and listen to what he's saying.
Yeah.
Oh.
And Robin's like, I don't want any part of it. We're going to take the kids in. I said, no, cool. I'm not going to get into it. I just want to hear what he's actually saying. Because you can't hear. I mean, you hear maybe two words as you drive by.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's like, and it's typically hell is one of them. And maybe the other word is you. I don't know. But so I pulled in and I came out.
That is
and
the takeaway.
That's the takeaway, at least. That's the summarization of this whole sermon. And I mean, he was like all over the place. And of course he is. He probably doesn't have any notes. He's not thought it through.
And he's not talking to anybody. It's
He's
not a conversation.
He's not really talking with anybody. He's just like sputtering out a bunch of stuff.
That's what they do.
And people saw me there and asked me, and they asked me something, and I said, well, I just have a very different view of what preaching the gospel is for what y'all have. But I don't really want to get into it because my kids are in here, and I came here to spend time with them, not with you guys. So I said, good luck to you. And, but it's always that kind of like, I feel like, unfortunately, like that becomes the poster child in most people's minds of what, like when they hear the word sermon, immediately it's that.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they like may hear the phrase, preaching the gospel, they that comes to mind.
Yeah.
And immediately it's a super cringy, like, ugh, I don't want to be a part of that. And I feel like it's very easy for people to lump, as we talked about the last episode we did, on, Christians don't sin, or, we were like, well, who are the Christians you're talking about here? Is it just this like, caricature of what a Christian is that the world's kind of created? And the same in my mind is the same mentality, is like, it's a characterization of like preaching the gospel or whatever, is that they're all judgy because of that. Unfortunately, it's there. We see it. You guys saw it. You just dealt with it. It's there. And it's something that we have to deal with. So I thought we would look at just a couple of instances about, like, let's just like slam the door on judgment. And as Chris said, and I love it. I think you're right on. In their mind, they're absolutely right, because they really, really do think that they're on mission. They have been called, like a light from heaven just come down and shine on us. Like, go, take my banner into the battlefield and defeat the foe. And they are going to go and do that. So I feel like it's like important to like really kind of like say, let's understand what Jesus was actually really talking about. And it has zero to do with us being the judge and jury for God. So this is Matthew 7. This is verse 1, and it very simply is a verse about not judging each other. And the word judge here is the Greek word krino. Krino means to separate or select specifically, like preference. Like it's like you got you got a bunch of like apples coming down the conveyor belt, and they're all collecting in one area, and you're looking at them going like, no. Ooh, yeah.
Okay.
That one, I'm going to take that one. And it's very, very, very presumptuous, to the point where you are picking and choosing. So that's kind of the idea. Not only can it be conveyed as, judging other people, but also like in your obedience to God, picking and choosing what you choose to believe, picking and choosing how you follow, which would really go along with what you said about some of these people anyway. In their minds, it's, I'm doing the right thing. Right. Unfortunately, they are actually krino. They are actually judging the scriptures. They are actually judging the commands of God. They're picking and choosing almost like what really fits maybe more of their nature and how they want to approach things. So they're convinced of being right. They're convinced of being righteous, and they're very, very convinced of doing righteousness, the right thing. And in their mind, as we've said with cognitive dissonance, they make it right somehow. And so Jesus is basically saying, don't be involved with krino. Don't be involved with the idea of picking and choosing and being presumptuous to the point where you feel like that the decision is based on you. You're making the decision, whether that's being the judge, whether that's being judgy, whether it's selecting, picking, and choosing, what you choose to really believe about the scriptures and what it's very clear there. All that kind of starts to make sense, because it's really kind of like all the above. So we're watching this show on Paramount Plus, and it's actually it's 1923. Is that right? 1923. The show 1923. It's the precursor to
Yellowstone.
And they had the 1883, right? That was the precursor. Actually, I think I like those two shows way better than Yellowstone. I just can't get into Yellowstone. I don't know what it is. I love Kevin Costner. He's awesome, but I can't get into it. And I think since these are like little mini series, so they're easier, and the story moves faster, because it's just it's one season and we're done. Even though I think they're going to do a second season, maybe a third. But anyway, so this is from the Northwest point of view. South Dakota, Wyoming, that whole area, right? And so on the show, they're following that family, right? But they're also a part of the show is like showing this girl who's a Native American. I can't remember if she's like a Sioux or, what tribe she's from. Anyhow. And so it depicts this girl who's in a Native American boarding school. Okay. And it's Catholic ran.
Mm.
And these people are some of the most horrible people on the planet who are trying to civilize the savages, right? So like when we went back before, right? We're trying to like save the savages, the infidels. And they are trying to do that. I mean, and then there's like all kinds of like, they're showing like, rape. And I mean like female rape, not male to female rape, female to female rape. And like these people are beating these kids to like beat the sin out of them. And I'm like, I think you guys know me. I'm like, did this really happen?
Mm.
I don't know a whole lot of the history of that. So like, of course, then I'd take off on a crazy tangent trying to figure out what in the world is this real? My gosh. So then I read an article from Time Magazine. I'll read this. It's from 2022. It says last week, the U.S. Department of the Interior released a more than 100-page report on the federal indigenous boarding schools designed to assimilate Native Americans in the late 19th and the early 20th centuries. Between 1819 and 1969, as late as 1969.
Wow.
Oh, that's crazy.
The U.S. ran or supported 408 boarding schools, the department found. Students endured rampant physical, sexual, and emotional abuse, and the report recorded more than 500 deaths of Native children, a number set to increase as the department's investigation of this issue continues. The article continues on, says, we continue to see the evidence of this attempt to forcibly assimilate indigenous people in the disparities that communities face. Deb Haaland, Interior Secretary and first Native American Cabinet Secretary, said in a statement. She said, it's my priority to not only give voice to the survivors and descendants of federal Indian boarding school policies, but also to address the lasting legacies of these policies so indigenous peoples can continue to grow and heal. So these schools were running from 1819 to 150 years. 150 years trying to forcibly assimilate indigenous people into the American way. And to the point where, and most of these are all Catholic ran stuff. So when we talked about this before, like all the crazy stuff that's been done in the name of God, I would say for like any people who are listening to what we're talking about or anytime we're talking about it, this whole idea of so they say is really trying to like erase like hundreds of years, even over 1,000 years of these preconceived characterizations of what Christian means.
Correct.
And Jesus himself, I think, is very, very, very clear if we'll read it and listen on what he's actually calling us to do. I mean, I personally don't see the problem. I don't know why this continues to be a problem, but, force has been used in the name of, as we said, going on the defense by going on the, being defensive by going on the offense. The Jewish exile is one that comes to mind. The Christian Crusades from 11 to 13, from 3 centuries of that, which is insane.
Well, I want to say real quick, we're not trying to erase the preconceived stuff, right? It's more like we're highlighting it to show you, like,
we're going to bring it out in the light and show the truth.
Right. It's not like, let's forget about this and move. Like,
I don't want to forget about it.
Yes.
I definitely want to remove it as the poster child.
Yes. Let's actually confront what was happening and say, like, why is this happening? And
why?
This is actually aligned with our own personal beliefs and how there's very different. Different views.
Yeah. So, doing this for God, validating what we're doing, even if it only means one person. I wrote on here, onward Christian soldiers marching as to war, a true battle hymn. We're going to go and We're going after the enemy. No, not Satan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so
And not like this, the plank in our eye either.
No.
yeah.
No.
No, because we already
We're good.
removed it.
We're good.
We removed it.
Yeah,
So
we're
now that
good.
we've removed it, we can see clearly the way that God has told us to see,
Yeah.
and all the enemies
Yeah.
that isn't Satan. There was a student, we were just talking to her, and one of her takeaways this last 2 years, she's a sophomore, she said something along the lines, because she went to a small private Christian school, and she was saying that they were basically preparing her for like the darkness that is a secular school of UNC Charlotte, progressive like school of UNC Charlotte. And then she said when she got here, she realized that the non-Christians were way nicer to her than the Christians, and that people were actually very open to having spiritual conversations. But the whole time people were ingraining in her, there's this enemy, right? And that is every non-Christian and every non-Christian belief, right? And so you have to you have to stockpile your weapons because they're stockpiling their weapons,
Right.
and you will have to use it, and this is how you use it. And that's why like all these you like, I think it's episode 1 where you're talking about it was your chance to talk, like debunk evolution. Yeah, it's like a 7th grader, right?
Yeah.
Here's Tyler's chance. He's been living his whole life. He's been groomed for this moment.
Yeah.
And then you folded because like it wasn't about building a bridge. It was you have the right information. How can you like transform people with the information that is blessed by God?
Yeah.
That you've been tasked to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it becomes this us versus them, and I have the right answers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
Well, I think too, and we're not going to get into this now because it's something, it's a talk for later on, but there is a great difference between doing something for God and doing something with God.
Yep.
And we'll just kind of tease this and then let it go for another day. But the reality is like, the mindset is like, don't worry, God, I got this. I'm going to go out here and do this for you.
Yeah.
As if God can't fight his own battles.
Yeah.
And as if that's what we're called to. We're called to be into this militant, we're in the army of God. We're in God's armies, and that's not really what Jesus is about. That's not what Jesus is like presenting when he says the kingdom of heaven has come. It's not about that. I say this too. I think maybe we've talked about this before, but I don't think we have. We did. I think we did when we talked about like what kind of Messiah was Jesus and what kind of Messiah were people thinking Jesus would be. And obviously people thought Jesus would be a militant Messiah because that's what all the anointed ones were up until then. They were all kings. They had armies. They went into battles. They fought the battles of the Lord. The Lord went before them and gave them the victories and blah, blah. This was kind of what being God's people was really about. It was about keeping all the outsiders out. It wasn't really about loving people and inclusion. It was not really an inclusion kind of deal. It was a conquer and maybe then include, but they still weren't official or pure or whatever. And so, so kind of, is Jesus going to be that as well? Is he going to bring back the old glory of Jerusalem and going to be the new David again? And even, I think what we talked about too is like we would love to say the disciples got it, but it's like in the Garden of Gethsemane, Peter draws a sword.
It's so evident what they actually thought about the Messiah.
Totally.
Yeah. And I think even today, right?
Why is he even carrying a sword?
Well, yeah.
Why do you carry a sword?
Just in case.
Oh, didn't
I was going to say, did
Who
you tell him?
doesn't?
Jesus
told him
asked
to carry.
him.
We don't get into it.
Jesus told him to carry a sword?
Yeah, because we've had this conversation.
Yeah.
What was that in first hesitations or first opinions?
It's a reason why people love guns. So I was going to say, I think a lot of people still believe, and so do the disciples, that God saved us so that we could do stuff for him. Now that we have this, like, he saved me for a good reason, and that reason and purpose is to serve him in the way we think we should serve him.
Right.
And I think there's oh my gosh, Jersey Shore.
I've seen every episode.
What's that?
No, I've not.
What's the he's a main one of like the four Mike. Is his name Mike? I don't remember.
Something
like Hot
deep.
Mike or something.
Biff.
I don't know. One of them.
Biff.
What he's a Christian now.
I don't
So
know.
he went to like jail, whatever.
Okay.
He's a Christian now, and he said that like God saved me. I'm going to butcher it, but he basically was saying that God saved me, but with the condition under one condition is I carry a bucket to save or like to like save people from hell.
Oh man.
Right. So it's just like I think Christians see that like, hell yeah, brother, that's it.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna do this
Yeah,
together,
yeah.
like arm in arm. We're
Yeah.
gonna save all the people from hell. Because his idea is like God saved me
Mm-hmm.
because He knows that I can go back to these people who are going to hell, so I could save them.
Mm-hmm.
So he loves me because he wants me to do stuff for
Which
him.
is what good intentions. I understand that, but I
Yeah.
think it's out of this like, yeah, it just it's a little misguided, right? Of like
Yeah.
you miss the mark, right?
Totally.
And I think that's where
yeah.
like the judging comes from.
Yes.
So like
It does. I mean, it's ancient worship,
yeah,
right? And we talk about this too. The ancient worship was, God comes and shows himself and we all bow down and do his will.
yes,
But Jesus comes and goes, well, do you really know what the will of God is? Because I'll tell you what it is.
Mm.
It's love.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not militant. It isn't any of those things. So I think like by default, our human nature in identifying a God and human relationship, AKA worship, means bowing down, sacrificing, and going before him as his armies or as his, and we say hands and feet,
mm-hmm.
right? But the hands and feet are carrying swords and spears and
Mhm.
marching, instead of washing feet and caring people and
Right.
loving people.
Right.
So here's I want to read. This is Matthew 5. Okay, so we're going to scripturize this to kind of like stop it very quickly. We've if you are listening to this for the first time, go back and look at that whole little mini series we did in the very beginning about what is a Christian, what is Christ, and all that kind of stuff. Because Jesus did not come to be that kind of
Mm-hmm.
God. He did not come to portray that kind of God. He did not come to portray that type of worship and that type of kingdom. He came to portray a very, very unique, or AKA holy version. And so this is Matthew 5. It says, and this for sure you've been taught since birth. Love your neighbor and hate your enemy. There it is.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
There it is. That's by birth. That's nature, human nature. But here's what God thinks. Love your enemy and pray for those who are out to get you so that you can act and be like your Father God. So here's the thing. Our mind says this is how it's supposed to be, but Jesus is like going, that's not even actually how God is.
Right.
This is how God is. And he's wanting you to do the same thing. He's created, so he goes on, he has created both the evil and good person. He's given the same opportunities for both those who live right and those who don't. If you just love those who are easy to love, what's the point of that? Even the worst of people do that. So instead, go deeper, live higher, strive for perfection, and be like your Father God. So right off the bat, Jesus is really laying it down. Here's typically how human beings work from nature, as our nature, our fallen nature, is that we're supposed to love the people that do good, and we're supposed to hate the people in our own eyes that don't do good, whatever that is, whether they really are doing good or they're not doing good, or it's just in our own little eyes and how we pick and choose, right? And now that makes you go, okay, now I get why Jesus is telling us not to be pick and choose and, judge or whatever. He's saying don't even function that way,
Mm-hmm.
because that is like you can fall down this slippery path here of being the same person as your DNA says. Love the people that you think are doing the good things, hate those that are not. Instead, God, if you're supposed to be like your Father God, this is what God is like. God is not out to get anybody. He loves those who say bad things about him. And he's definitely vigilantly listening and paying attention to those who are even out to get him. This is Matthew 20:24. When the other 10 students of Jesus heard about this, they were not happy. This is after James and John, their mom comes to Jesus, says, "Hey, Lord, I got a question for you, a little favor. When you come into your kingdom, could you make my boys give them high power positions, mainly your left hand and your right hand? Because we've done a lot for you. We've had you in our house. We've supported you in your ministry. These boys gave up fishing, for crying out loud. We gave up our profession really for you here. So the other 10 are not happy, as you can imagine. It says they were pretty ticked at James and John. That's probably an understatement. Jesus pulled everyone together and said, you know that the routine typically goes like this. Leaders and rulers and those in special positions take advantage of their situation. They act like they're the boss, and they let everyone around them know it. It's not going to be like that with us or with you. Instead, if you really want to be great, you have to become a servant first. If you want to sit in the most important seat and have the highest position of power and influence, you have to become a slave. The Son of Man, me, did not come to be served, but to serve, and to pay the ultimate price of death to set prisoners and slaves everywhere free. So, I don't know how you can read this without picking and choosing and understand exactly what's the situation. Jesus is even telling his 12 closest friends, his students, the people who have given up their lives to follow him as a rabbi. He's trying to help them and teach them the way that he works and the way that they are going to work. It's very, very clear. It's very, very black and white. Listen, life tells you this, as we just saw in the other scripture. Life says this. Human nature says this. By nature, you're going to want to do this. I'm telling you that God is holy. He's unique. He's different. And he does the opposite. So if you really want to be in line with God, you really have to do the opposite of what your head tells you is the way to do it. And as we said before, holy means different. It means unique. And that's exactly what Jesus is calling us to do. He's asking us to be like the Father, because God is that way. He does not work the same way that we work. And that means living a life that's just very different, very different. And it's just not going to be one where you just strategize like the rest of the world strategizes and put God's name on it as a twist. And this is what we're going to go and portray.
Yeah, you can tell, right? Because it's how can you read this and then your takeaway is the actions you're doing, right? The bad examples we're talking about. And I think what's exactly to your point, it is a different message, but you can still 100% package that up in human terms, right? And then say like, oh, for me, what was the last thing we just read? To be a servant, right? Or to have this power, you have to be a slave first, or to serve first.
Right.
Well, this is me serving first.
Right.
Right. And so I still think we can 100% create places where we train and institutionalize these messages for people to think this is what a relationship with God can look like. And that is why, right? So there is this
manipulation.
Yes. Right. And so it's not like, again, the purpose of what we're trying to do is like, it isn't, this stuff doesn't just, how do I say it? It's not an accident. We have these things set in place that tell almost misinformation, right? And I'm not just talking about churches. I'm talking about like all sort of like Christian things with like political ties, with like money ties, with like company ties, right? So I think I'm losing my train of thought. But I think the idea is that it is so, because this message is so different. Like if you actually hear this, your actions won't seem as insecure, right? Because it's always this like, I have to do this to defend God, right? I'm doing this so that people would know, so they wouldn't hate God. And when
Right.
they see something about God, like I lash out at that because like, how dare you say that about my God?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because it's just like virtue signaling, right?
You're
All
right.
these things is like, because if this is if you understand what God is saying, He's saying like, dude, like I am in control,
Mhm.
and part of my control is to say that like I like am almost willing to lose my life out of sake of love for my people that who are trying to kill God.
Right, right,
Right? Lay down your life.
right,
The ultimate example is that Jesus didn't win in human conditions. He died.
right,
Right? Like, and he willingly he didn't like lose the fight. He
Right.
willingly lost his life
right.
to set people
Paid a
free.
price
Paid the
because
price to set
that
people
was the
free.
price.
That is the
Right.
thing, right? The people that wanted to kill me, I'll allow them to kill me. Because my point isn't to like win this human battle.
Mhm.
But it is what we're talking about is this love that actually transforms cultures. This
Right.
love that transforms societies,
Right.
and it's more fruitful and fulfilling to people that actually believe in it, because people who see the real thing are like, that looks different.
Right.
That looks so counter from everything else in the world I'm
Right.
experiencing that
Yeah.
that is something that I could actually be bought in. What
Mhm.
is that? Right. And that usually doesn't start with information. It is by like not judging people, but loving them.
Yeah.
Right. When others are judging on them, they're like, how come you're different?
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's because they actually have this transformation of the spirit.
Right.
Because again, it's not like you're not trying to force these fruits to come out of you.
Yeah.
It's no, if you actually are understanding who God is and have this relationship and He's dwelling within you,
Right.
right?
The result
is you will have this
Fruit.
love from other people,
Right.
for other people.
Yeah.
And I think that is why, like, yeah, it's not, man, if your actions come off cross judgy,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to sit down and be like, what I need to be reminded of what the fruits of my labor should look like.
Mhm.
I need to
Yeah.
be reminded of like how God actually is, and what his whole mission on earth, what did it look like?
Yeah.
Because if it looks anything like
Yeah.
counter to that, then I got to reevaluate what I'm actually doing.
Yeah. I think most people don't have a problem with Jesus. They have
Yeah.
a problem with Christians.
Yes.
Or the church or whatever. And for me, it really can be just incredibly simplified down to one thing. And we've said it before. The idea of a Christian means that you are about the Christ, right? You are pertaining to the Christ. And if Jesus is that capital M Messiah thing that
Mhm.
we've talked about, and that's him, and we're supposed to be, our lives are then as a Christian or whatever, then we're supposed to be about that.
Yeah.
And it's just real simple to like going, I don't really have to sit here and just put a bunch of scriptures together. All I have to do is like going like, well, just what kind of dude was Jesus?
Yeah.
How did he succeed? I mean, because we're talking about a movement from one person that's been around for, over 2,000 years and has exploded all over the globe, for crying out loud. It has had a major effect on people's lives. It currently sometimes doesn't as much in the form of Christians or church sometimes. But the bottom line is that, this one dude came and he changed a lot of different things by just how his
Mhm.
approach, which was the Father's approach, right? A different kingdom, a kingdom based on love and service. I mean, we know that Jesus had every right to come down and be the king. He had every right to
Yeah.
be that
Yeah.
militant guy, Messiah if he really wanted to.
Yeah.
I mean, he even told the devil, hey, if I want, the devil even knew, hey, throw yourself off the temple. There's no way God's going to let you die. All these angels are going to come in and sweep you up. These angel armies are going to come in at any time. He can call in all this stuff and get out of this if he really wanted to. But Jesus knew that this wasn't God's way. And I'm going to be about what God's about. And I'm calling you to be about what I'm about,
Mhm.
which is about what
Mhm.
the Father's about. And it's a wonderful little deal here. And so it's very, very, very simple and plain. If there is a point where we're starting to judge what kind of role we're supposed to play in this, it's very easy just to go back to the very, very simple basics of a follower and who they're following.
Mhm.
It's really that simple. If Jesus did really call you, he first and foremost called you to be a follower and to be a rabbi's follower, to be like the rabbi. And then so what?
Yeah.
Then what was the rabbi?
How many fights did Jesus pick with non-Jews? Right? Like, how many times was he going around to like the Gentiles and like, I don't know, like berating them or telling them how wrong they were? I just don't see that. I don't see these. I mean, he was so confident.
He did the opposite.
He did the opposite. And he would say hard things. If people left, he would turn to the disciples and say, "What do you guys believe?" You know, he if people may not like his message, that's okay. Because it's out of love, and that's why people start flocking to him. Like, I think,
right.
It's just right there.
Yeah, it is, and I think this episode is not really for those who are out there doing the abortion preaching thing. I mean, if they stumble upon it and find some light, man, awesome, great. But really, it's for those people who are in their minds think that, in order to be a Christian, you have to immediately become a judgy person.
Yeah.
And right. I would say this because I've dealt with it before, and I know you guys have dealt with it. It goes back to that same idea of like, I don't really have a problem with Jesus. And then it's like, well, cool. Then here's the deal. Don't worry about what Christians are saying and stuff. The church is saying, Christians saying, whatever. I don't care. Just go and focus on what Jesus is saying.
Yeah. Jesus isn't the pathway to that.
Correct.
If you're like,
to church.
Right. Cause so I think people are like, I don't want to look like that.
Yeah.
And if Jesus will lead me to that, why would I want Jesus?
Right.
And what you're saying is like, no, that's not the first step to that. Like, that's a completely different pathway.
Yeah.
That is possible.
Go to the source.
Yeah. Go to the source.
Quit looking at the end of the water hose and go, that looks awful. Well, the water hose is probably corrupted. So maybe you should just unhook it from the source and see what comes out of the source. Tyler, would you like to say the last word for the day? Would you want to?
Hold on. Can I say something real quick? And then Tyler will say it.
You have the next to last word.
Okay. For the abortion people, you can believe what you want to believe, and you can do what you want to do. Like, I'm sorry. Just if you are unable to have conversations with people with sympathy and love and empathy, then don't freaking do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. I'm against you doing it. If you are just standing on the street and yelling at people and making people feel guilty, but you can have that thought of abortion. That's wrong.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go for it.
Yeah. You can have your own thoughts, but don't put Jesus' name on it and say that this is official.
Yes, yes.
Because
it's not a Christian thing.
We're not going to have it.
Sorry, this is not an abortion podcast.
Not going to have it.
Anyway, sorry.
Anybody doing that.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are.
Okay.
Tyler's got the last word, everybody. This is it.
The message of Jesus, like lots of other things in our world, can easily become misinterpreted and altered into something else, something it is clearly not. Simply put, the message of Jesus is not about hate, anger, and judgment. It's about love. Love even in the face of hate.